Welcome to episode 2 of the Burt and Urbin show. We are back. It is week 3 in college football,
Yes.
week 2 in the NFL, and we got so many games we want to talk about. I think we should just start right on. Yeah. Let's start off with probably the only game that matters tonight. Maryland is at Illinois. That is a 9 o'clock kickoff. Maryland is a 7-point favorite. Illinois had that huge win week 0 against Nebraska. And then they fell apart against UTSA and they got blown out by Virginia. What is this Illinois team?
I do not think they are very good. Most of the time, Illinois is not very good. And I think this is no different.
Yeah, they got Brett Bielema, obviously coming back to the Big Ten, first-year head coach technically. Obviously, it's going to take some time to get a system going. But Maryland, they had that huge win against West Virginia week 1. And then they defeated Howard last week, like 67-0 or something like that. So I will not be surprised if Maryland kind of runs away with this game. But you never know with the Big Ten.
Yeah, I happen to agree. I think Maryland is just the better team. I think week 0, Illinois, I think that was just, beginning of the season, not necessarily a great team that they were facing. So I think they lied in that game more than they told the truth.
Yeah, like I said, I see Maryland probably beating them. Probably by a decent amount.
Yeah, I could see them covering the spread. What, 7? 7. Yes, I could see them doing that.
Okay, let's move on to the first game that I want to talk about, the 12 o'clock window on Saturday. That is our Michigan State Spartans, even though I'm wearing Cincinnati. Our Michigan State Spartans travel down to South Beach to face the Hurricanes. Miami is surprisingly a 6.5-point favorite after getting blown out by Alabama and only winning by 2 on a last-minute field goal against Appalachian State last week. What should we expect from Michigan State this week? We obviously saw they really depended on the run game week 1 against Northwestern. And then week 2 against Youngstown State, obviously that's not a big teller, but they did seem to use the passing game more often.
Yes, I definitely see them coming back to the running game this week. I think especially against a better team such as Miami, they're going to need to rely on that a little bit more just to open up the pass game enough for Peyton Thorne. And I think the key will be the running game and how well Kenneth Walker and a few of the rotational backs provide for this team.
I think another factor in this game is going to be the heat and humidity. I believe it's going to be a kickoff temperature of like 85, 90 degrees. So it's going to be interesting to see how Michigan State adapts to that. Because their first game of the season was 9 o'clock kickoff, 8 o'clock local time in Evanston. And then, so obviously cooler temperatures. And then their game against Youngstown, it was like only like 75, 80 degrees out. There were reports in the news that they were practicing with like the heat and humidity cranked up in the facility this week. I really don't know like if that really does make a difference. Like you're inside and you got like the heat cranked up and everything, but nothing compares to practice in the actual conditions.
Yeah, I would happen to agree. And I think the biggest thing for this is to keep the defense on the sidelines as much as you can. Control the clock, control the tempo. If you can keep that defense rested, I think this will be a win for Michigan State. However, a lot of times teams are not able to do that as easily as people talk about. It's not that easy. But if they can succeed, get the running game going, and keep the defense on the sideline, I think they have a good shot in this game.
Another big key in this game, stopping De'Aaron King, dual threat quarterback for Miami. He obviously didn't look good against Alabama. It's Alabama. Youngstown State, not Youngstown State, and think about Michigan State. Appalachian State, he looked more of himself. He still didn't look like 100% like himself because Appalachian State is a decent team. So I think that is another big key to this game, that the Michigan State defense, who's been a little shaky this year, they have to find a way to stop Derrick King.
Yes, for sure. And I would happen to point to our defensive ends and our linebackers to get this done. We need to contain very well. A few times against Youngstown State, we did not contain the run as well as I thought we should. And if they're able to clean that up, if they were able to get that done this week in practice and point that out, I think, he'll still be able to provide some trouble, regardless of how well you do.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can minimize it, that'd be ideal.
Like I said, Miami is surprisingly a 6.5 point favorite. I believe it's surprising. I figured the number probably would have been more down to 2 or 1. Like I figured this game was close to a pick 'em. But we mentioned on the recap our last episode that it opened at 8. So this number has dropped, but it hasn't dropped as much as I expected.
Yes. Yeah, I definitely could see this game going either way. I think 6 is a lot. I think these teams are more evenly matched up than maybe the analysts are thinking. But 6 is a lot. I can see it within maybe 3.
Yeah. I saw another story, a preview for tomorrow's game against Miami. And they said if Mel Tucker and the Spartans win this game, it's a program defining win for the Mel Tucker era. Do you believe that to be true, given that he did beat Michigan last year with probably the worst team that Michigan State's had in a long time?
I think this would be a defining moment in the Mel Tucker era. The reason I say this is because we all know last year was a little shaky because of the COVID. And the COVID situation, it really wasn't a real season, but it was a season at the same time. So I think, I don't take that away from MSU getting a win. I thought that was awesome. But at the same time, it wasn't really like a normal situation with normal fan pressure and big game. It didn't have the same caliber. So I think if he can get a win against Miami, it shows in the first real season back that he can defeat a competitive team, because so far it hasn't been competition. So yes, I think it would be pretty defining.
Yeah, there's a difference between walking into the big house and winning a game with 800 people in attendance compared to 110,000.
Yes, for sure.
It will be interesting to see how many Spartans show up. Obviously, they are playing at Hard Rock Stadium, which is mostly the home of the Dolphins. Miami usually doesn't fill the place, so it will be interesting to see if it becomes somewhat a Spartan Stadium South, kind of like how Ryan Field for week 1 was Spartan Stadium West. I don't know if that will be a huge factor in the game. Like I said, I think the biggest factor will be the heat and humidity, but this should be a very interesting game from start to finish.
Yes, I'm very excited for this one.
Like I said, I think the number's way too high for Miami. I do think Michigan State ends up covering. Let's talk about the team that I am wearing, the Cincinnati Bearcats. Huge opportunity on the national stage this week. They're going to Bloomington to face an Indiana team that we don't really know much about. They lost badly to Iowa week 1. They handily defeated Idaho week 2. It's similar situation with Michigan State versus Youngstown State. You don't take much from it. But this is a huge game for Cincinnati, especially if they want to push for a playoff spot that they most likely won't get. But if things do fall their way, this could be a resume building win for them if they get the win.
Yes, I think if you want to build a culture and you want to build a winning program, these are the type of games that need to not even be in question. This type of game, they need to come in there, they need to handle business. I'm thinking blow them out, but you need to do that if you want to be able to compete with the bigger teams. And I expect them to go in there easily looking the better team and winning.
I think the question is what Indiana team shows up. If it's the same Indiana team that showed up against Iowa, this is going to be almost easy for Cincinnati.
Yeah.
But if it's somewhat the team that showed up against Idaho, I mean, it's still Idaho and you don't really know much after that game, but I think it will be closer. But then the question is it the same Cincinnati team that showed up in the first half against Murray State last week that went in 7-7 at halftime? Or is it the second half team that blew out Murray State and led to, I believe it was like a 49-14 win?
Yeah, they definitely need to come in strong. As I was saying, that's what the good teams do. They start off strong, they get that initial lead, they tire their opponent, and then they make changes going into halftime to continue to do that, to continue to succeed. And I think against Murray State, they came out flat. They were able to turn it around, but a lot of times, especially in competitive games, you can't do that as easily.
Yeah, Cincinnati's a 4-point favorite. That's like just a big enough number to kind of worry me because this is going to be a tough game, I think, for both teams. I don't see this being a high scoring game at all. Like, I would not be surprised if this game ends 24-20 and then you hit that 4 right there. It's like I said, it's a number that perplexes me. I want to believe that Cincinnati covers that number, but I could also see them not covering.
I think Cincinnati will cover. I think they're, in my mind, they're easily the better team. But as you said, who knows what team comes in? So we'll find that out. I'm excited for that one.
Let's just take a quick detour with something to do with Cincinnati that also has nothing to do with Cincinnati. USC obviously fired Clay Helton after the week 2 game. We did not discuss that because it happened after we recorded. Luke Fickell is obviously a big name that could be going for the job, as the AD at USC is the one who hired him at Cincinnati. Do you think that has any distraction in the player's mind going into this game and possibly even the rest of the season?
I don't think that has a lot weighing on the players' minds, but I think it could very well be a big idea on Luke Fickell's mind. And I think he sees the California situation, big name in USC, big potential to build up a big brand. It's already a big brand, but if you could get in there and turn it around like they have been in the past and in history, I think that would be, that's legacy changing for someone like Luke Fickell. So I think that could be on his mind. But however, you do have a highly ranked Cincinnati team here. And knowing most guys in football, I think he's more thinking about Cincinnati than he is USC.
Yeah. We will discuss the other rumors dealing with USC when we talk about a few other games. Let's move on to Rocky Lombardi's return to the big house. Northern Illinois is going to play Michigan. There's also a 12 o'clock kick on Saturday. Michigan's a 27.5-point favorite. That's obviously a huge number for a quarterback that defeated them in their own stadium last year. Again, it was only like 800 people and a completely different team, but this is Rocky's return to the big house.
It is. And I hate to deflate the bubble, but I do not think that Rocky is going to go in there and get another win against Michigan, sadly. I know that would be very beautiful, very ideal, but this team is not what Michigan State's team was last year. And I think that's pretty easy to see. I think it would be great, though. I'm really hoping for it to happen.
Yeah, I almost said Cincinnati. Northern Illinois, week 1, they played at Georgia Tech. They won 22-21 against what's starting to now look like a not very good Georgia Tech team, which, I mean, we kind of could see that coming, but you never know. Some things change, like Michigan State. But he looked pretty decent in that game. Now, they did play Wyoming week 2. They lost like 52-47 or something like that. But they were down by a lot, and Northern Illinois was making the comeback. Yeah, I don't see Northern Illinois winning either. My heart wants them to win. I don't think they will win. I do think they keep it close.
Yeah.
I think they do cover that huge 27.5 point number. But I also did say the same thing about Western Michigan, and Michigan just blew them out.
Yes. Yeah, I expect Michigan to continue to just pound the rock, tire out defenses, especially Western or this Northern Illinois team. I mean, their defenses don't have the rotation to keep up with these big long drives. They just don't. So yeah, I expect Michigan to handle business, but I do expect it to be within 27.
Yeah, Jim Harbaugh made some interesting comments this week about people complaining about how they're playing with a mostly emphasis on the run game, and he started talking about generals and how some people do it through the air and some people do it on the ground. Just an interesting man. I don't really think there's much more to say about it because it's a non-conference game against a MAC opponent.
Yeah. The only thing I would say, which it's more of a general idea, this week is very defining for college football. Many of these teams have had good wins and they've had bad losses between week 1 and week 2. And we don't know what a lot of these teams are. So I'm really excited to find out the truth behind a lot of these teams this week.
So let's move on to a team that we're hoping to find out about this week. Nebraska is going to Norman to face Oklahoma. That is also a noon kickoff. A lot of decent games in the noon window this week. Oklahoma's a 22.5 point favorite. I think we're looking at both teams trying to see what they are. Obviously, Oklahoma, they only won by 5 against Tulane week 1. They blew out a Western Carolina team, another FCS opponent, like 69-0 or something like that, week 2. Nebraska lost week 0 against Illinois. They beat Fordham, whatever, and they beat Buffalo weeks 1 and 2. Obviously, those are not high caliber opponents compared to Oklahoma. What are we expecting from this game?
I'm expecting to see Oklahoma feel comfortable. I expect the offense to come out firing against a not so good Nebraska defense. They've played all right, but I mean, against Illinois, they did not look good at all. Yeah, I expect Oklahoma to cover the, what was it, 22?
22.5.
22.5. Yeah, I expect them to cover the 22.5. I think this offense will be way too much.
Yeah, I mean, like we said, losing to Illinois week 0, it might have been a fluke, but it's definitely a scar on this schedule that they might not end up doing well. But that's just a terrible loss, especially looking at what Illinois is now. So I think Nebraska is trying to rectify that they're like a decent team, but that loss is still going to be a stain on them. So I think that they go into Norman and like they're going to stay with Oklahoma for probably like the first quarter, maybe the first quarter and a half. And then after that, I feel like Oklahoma is going to run away.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there.
I mean, this is a huge rivalry game from the old Big 8, Big 12 days. And then obviously Nebraska left for the Big 10. This is the first time they're meeting since 2010. So is the rivalry still there for the players that I guess mostly knew of Nebraska as a Big 10 team, I guess?
I don't think it's really a traditional rivalry. It's just not. I mean, like you said, they haven't played since 2010. How much of a rivalry really is that?
Yeah. The only exception to that, I think, is the Texas A&M game. They have not played since 2010, I believe. But those two schools still have a hate for each other that they won't even schedule each other in non-conference, obviously, until Texas joins the SEC and the rivalry will be back again. But yeah, if you're out of a conference for like more than 10 years, like Nebraska, it's not a rivalry anymore, more of it being just like nostalgia, basically. Like, Oh, remember when we played Oklahoma in the Big 12 days? Man, those were some fun games.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't really believe it's much of a rivalry anymore, more of it just being nostalgia. Yeah, I do see Oklahoma covering that 22.5. I don't really think there's much more on this game.
No.
Let's move on to another game. This one, I think the result is pretty much certain. Tulsa is going to the Horseshoe to face Ohio State. Ohio State's 25-point favorite. We're all pretty sure that Ohio State's going to bounce back and win, but I think it's more of what Ohio State's going to look like in that bounce back.
Yeah, I expect this team to look really good. I think they'll come out. That defense is going to play very strong. I think the passing attack should be better against a weaker team. Against Oregon, they played all right. Their defense did not look good at all, though. So I expect to see a lot of focus on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, this is a Tulsa team that lost to UC Davis week 1, and they stayed pretty close to Oklahoma State week 2. I believe they only lost by like 5 or 6. So I do think they are in for a rude awakening. I don't see this one being close at all. I'm pretty sure Ohio State covers that 25-point favorite number. So yeah, like I said, there's really not much in this game except seeing how much or how good Ohio State bounces back.
Yeah, I think this is a good bounce back game for them. Like perfect timing on the schedule. They got the ugly loss out of the way. They're going to build that confidence back up, and I think they will still be competing for a playoff spot.
Yeah, I think they'll be competing for playoffs, Big Ten titles. They're still the team to beat in the Big Ten. I don't think any other Big Ten team's close. The next closest is probably Iowa, but we'll see.
Yeah, certainly.
Let's move on to what I believe is the game of the week. Alabama going to the Swamp versus Florida. Alabama's a 14.5-point favorite. I don't know if this number is justified. But I also do see it being justified because Alabama is Alabama. But when you go to a hostile environment like Florida against what I'm assuming is going to be a pretty good Florida team this year, I think it's going to be closer.
I don't know. I happen to think that Alabama is a way better team than Florida. I think Bryce Young is a generational talent. And I think the more time he has under this offense, the more comfortable he's going to look. And I don't think the Florida defense will be able to keep up.
No doubt about it. Alabama is the best team by far in college football right now. I don't really think anybody's close. You can say Georgia, you can say Clemson, even though they lost to Georgia. They're not close. If Georgia and Alabama faced off this week or next week, or the SEC championship, Alabama's still going to win by probably 20.
Yeah.
I think that's how far ahead they are. And it would be a shocker if they lose just a game this year. Like, that is monumental shocker if they lose.
Yeah, and I think that, as I kind of pointed out too, the big reason why Alabama is so far ahead of everyone right now is because of the quarterback play. When you look around college football right now, there's not a ton of for sure going to be great NFL quarterbacks. And I think the only one you can truly point to right now is Bryce Young.
Yeah, like you said, Bryce Young, he looks outstanding. By far better than probably any quarterback in college football right now. Probably a Heisman favorite, even though it's September. You know, the media always likes to give out that September Heisman.
Yeah.
But they're just on a completely different level. Always the discussion, well, could they beat the worst NFL team? No, they couldn't. But they are just on a different level than any other college team right now. I do think Alabama ends up covering that 14.5.
Yeah, I think they cover as well.
Let's move on to the Tulane Ole Miss game. Just for Nick Burt, me, my fact of the week, fun fact of the week. This is going to be fun. Tulane used to be a member of the SEC. I believe they were there until 1970. Tulane has more SEC championships than 7 current members of the SEC. Those 7 members are Kentucky, Mississippi State, Arkansas, Missouri, South Carolina, Texas A&M, and Vanderbilt. That is your fun fact of the week.
That is a very fun fact.
Yeah.
And that's kind of hard to believe, actually.
Yeah, like just even hearing Tulane was in the SEC, that's just, it's kind of shocking.
Yeah.
You don't really expect it.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there are some other teams like Georgia Tech, Sewanee or whatever it was called, that was back in the 20s. But yeah, I just thought that was pretty shocking that Tulane has more SEC championships, especially against like teams like Kentucky and Mississippi State, because I'm pretty sure they were founding members of the SEC.
Yeah.
So let's move on to Auburn is going to the whiteout at Penn State. This is Penn State's a 5-point favorite. This is the first time they're doing a whiteout for the non-conference games. I believe this is only like the second time Auburn's going up against a ranked opponent, like in the North or something like that, or when both teams are ranked, something like that. I'm not really sure what to expect from this game.
I'm not really sure what to expect either, but I think the whiteout, one of the best traditions, atmospheres in college, all of college football, is going to play such a factor into this game.
Yep.
I mean, you always look back to the whiteout, and there's a famous video against Michigan, the first play of the game, they caused the delay game or false start.
Yep.
I mean, that is just such a cool moment, and I think it'll have the same effect as this game, especially being that we're coming off of the COVID year that didn't see fans in the stands. Fans are excited for this one. I think Penn State covers the five and a half. I think they're going to. I could definitely see Penn State rolling over Alabama with this type of atmosphere.
Auburn.
Or yes, excuse me, I misspoke. Yes, Auburn.
Yeah. Just looking back at some of the results from previous whiteouts, you obviously have that huge game against Ohio State in 2016 with that blocked field goal. They ended up winning that game 24-21. You have the 2018 game, which was again against Ohio State. They only lost by 1, but that was another huge game. You obviously have the last time they had it, which was the Michigan game with the false start on the first play. Just kind of looking at this list, it's mostly, for the past decade, it's been Ohio State or Michigan. So for them having it against a non-conference team like Auburn, I feel like that's kind of pretty special.
Yes, I happen to agree. I think it's a little weird, though, that they chose a team like Auburn, who really, I mean, they're in the lower half of the top 25.
Yeah, 22.
Yeah, and I don't know who came up with that idea, really, because I think it's more special when it is within the Big Ten. Especially against a big rival like Ohio State or Michigan. But I think it is kind of cool that they're bringing it out. But I do hope that in the future they keep it for the special Big Ten rivalries.
So just looking at it, Penn State's overall record in the whiteout, which they've been doing since 2004, they're 8-8, which is kind of shocking. I thought they had more wins. And the only 2 non-conference opponents they've faced in the whiteout, 2007 was versus Notre Dame. They won 31-10. And 2011 versus number 3 Alabama, where they lost 27-11. The whiteout's going to be a huge factor in this game. Like I said, I don't really know what to think of Auburn. I don't know if they're good. They have first-year head coach Brian Harsin. He came over from Boise State. You obviously have James Franklin, which is another person that's rumored with the USC job. I feel like we should discuss that really quick. He was getting interviewed with the media this week, and they're like, "Oh well, are you considering the USC job?" He never said flat out no. This is like kind of reminds me of when the news broke about Texas and Oklahoma joining the SEC and they put out statements, they never said no.
Mhm.
So I wouldn't be surprised if James Franklin is at the top of the list for USC.
I could definitely see them trying to go for him the most, especially against in the past few years, this Penn State team, always competing, regardless of how well they're doing. They are a competitive team. They're never an easy win. So I think he's definitely on the top of the list. But my question is if he's willing to switch over. I think he really likes Penn State, and I don't think I could see him doing USC. But as I said about Luke Fickell, you know that's legacy changing if you can do it right. So all of these potential candidates, I think they have it on the back of their mind, but I don't know if he necessarily will.
Yeah, just what he did at Vanderbilt, basically. He turned Vanderbilt into like a 9-3 team.
Mhm.
And I think when reading something about it, like he said that one of his main recruiting pitches was that it's in Nashville.
Mhm.
Imagine what he could do to recruits when he says that, oh, I'm the head coach at USC, you know, in LA.
Yeah.
That is probably a hire, like one of probably only few hires that USC could make, and they might actually be back.
Yes.
Unlike Texas, of course.
Yes, of course.
But like getting them back to those Pete Carroll days of the early 2000s, I think he's one of the very few that could probably do that.
Yes, I do. I do think if he got the role, he would do a wonderful job, and I think he would bring USC back into the maybe not completely back to the Pete Carroll days, but at least back into the forefront of college football.
Yeah, going back to Penn State, because that's obviously where he's coaching right now. That they're favored by 5. I think they cover, but like I said, I don't know what to think of this Auburn team.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think they cover.
Let's go to one more game in college football. This one's really intriguing to me. It's a 10:45 kickoff at the Rose Bowl. Fresno State facing off against UCLA. UCLA is 11-point favorite. Fresno State had that huge week 0 win against Connecticut. Huge as in they beat them like 45-0. It's not like a monumental win for the program beating Connecticut. They came close to beating Oregon week 1, and I don't remember who they played week 2, but I'm pretty sure they won. And then you obviously have this UCLA team. They had a bye week last week, and then the huge win against LSU, and then the win against Hawaii week 0. Fresno State can probably put a scare into UCLA. I actually kind of see them maybe winning this game.
Yeah, I definitely think. I think the 11.5, or I always forget which
11.
11. All right. Yeah, I think 11 is way too much. I think Fresno State, they will compete against a not great UCLA team. I could see it going either way. It'll definitely be competitive though.
I mean, I gotta disagree with you on one thing there. We don't know how good this UCLA team is.
That is true.
Yes, they faced Hawaii week 0 and looked absolutely outstanding. Hawaii doesn't seem to be that good of a team this year. They beat down a good LSU team that we don't really know how good is this year. I think if UCLA is going to be competitive this year, they have to win this game by like 20 to show that they can be a decent competitor in the Pac-12.
Yeah.
But like I said, we don't really know how good this team is. So I could either see them winning by 20, I can see them losing to Fresno State.
Yeah, I think this is one of those games too where you're finding out about teams. I'm excited for this one. I think Rose Bowl is always a fun place to be. So, I think UCLA wins it, but I think it definitely will be close.
I'm picking Fresno State to win.
Upset.
Because we don't know how good this UCLA team is, nor do we really know how good Fresno State is. But them putting that scare into Oregon 2 weeks ago, I think that makes the decision for me. If they can compete with Oregon, I think that they can compete and finish the job against UCLA. Are there any other games in the in college football that you are looking at?
No, I'm just excited for this week. This week is a great week as we just went through so many great matchups. So I'm excited.
Okay, let's move to Sunday. We got some few big games in the NFL. Let's start off with the New England Patriots going to New York to face the Jets. The Patriots are 5.5-point favorites. The Patriots obviously coming off that week 1 loss to Miami. They did look good though. Mac Jones, he seems to be the guy.
Yeah.
The Jets, we don't really know about the Jets. They're probably going to be bad again.
Yeah.
They lost week 1 at Carolina against Sam Darnold, their former quarterback. Are we expecting a New England, like, not a blowout, but like a decent win?
Yeah, I expect a decent win. I think Mac Jones looked really comfortable against the Dolphins. And if not for that fumble, I think they win that game. I also think that Zach Wilson started to look more comfortable in the second half against the Panthers. So that does play a huge role. However, Bill Belichick is famous for his games against rookie quarterbacks.
Yep.
Disguising defenses, blitzing people, confusing these rookies, giving them something they've never seen before, especially the famous game against Sam Darnold when he was on the Jets.
Yep.
When Sam Darnold was seeing ghosts. I mean, I don't think this will be a close one. I don't think it's going to be a complete blowout, but I do think like New England will dominate the whole game and you'll recognize it.
Bill Belichick, 20-6 against rookie quarterbacks. Yeah, I think New England dominates this game probably from start to finish. I think they probably easily cover that 5.5 points. I think it's mostly just Zach Wilson and Mac Jones just need to get more snaps, basically. They got to get acclimated to NFL life, basically.
Yeah.
Let's move on to another game in the 1 o'clock window. A lot of games, just like college football, a lot of games in the 1 o'clock window look very interesting. The Los Angeles Rams travel to Indianapolis to face the Colts. Rams are a 3-point favorite, obviously coming off that huge win week 1 Sunday Night Football against Bears. The Colts coming off a loss to the Seahawks at home. We obviously have Matthew Stafford in this game, the greatest quarterback of all time, as probably going to be proclaimed by the media.
Yes. Did you know he's good?
Yeah, did you know that he didn't have a run game in Detroit, and that's why he's so bad?
Oh my gosh.
And did you know that he was friends with Clayton Kershaw as a kid?
I've never heard that.
I know, like these things, like I never knew that.
Yeah.
So the Colts, we talked about this yesterday because they announced the Hard Knocks. They're doing an in-season version with the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts are the most neutral team in the NFL.
Yes.
There's no intrigue with them. Yes, they have Carson Wentz as their quarterback, but that doesn't really move the needle for me.
No, not at all. And I think for this game specifically, that like when you look back to the Seahawks last week, that Colts defense I thought would be a lot better than they were. Granted, Russell Wilson, great every year.
Russell Wilson, let him cook.
Yes, exactly. But I thought this defense would look better than they did, and they did not look good, especially their secondary. Their secondary was getting torched. So I can definitely see the Rams offense with a fantastic Matthew Stafford. I think they're going to take advantage of that. They know what they saw in the film, and they're definitely going to try to attack the same things that Russell Wilson did. So I definitely see the Rams. I think the points are way too slim of a margin.
Yeah, the 3. That does seem like a very small number for what I think will not be a very close game.
Yeah.
It's just Matthew Stafford, like people will say, oh, he's not that much better than Goff or whatever. it looks like a completely different team
Yeah.
with him as quarterback. And I'm not shocked by that at all. Like you said, the secondary kind of got torched last week against the Seahawks. That's one of the Rams' like biggest features is their wide receivers. They're like really good. They can make plays when they need to make plays. So, like you said, I don't see this really being a close game.
No, neither.
So I do think the Rams end up winning this game.
Yes.
Let's talk about that Hard Knocks thing again. Just like I said, the Colts are the most neutral team in the NFL.
Yeah.
They are probably the only one that signed up for this. But like I said to you yesterday, like we need to get a team with intrigue.
Yeah.
Like give us a team that's gonna like run. Well, I mean, I guess I can't say run to the playoffs because the Colts are probably going to be playoff contenders just because the South is not that good. Give us a team like the Jaguars. Like when the team's 0-8 and Urban Meyer quits.
Yeah.
To go to USC. Maybe.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, give us a Jaguars. Give us a 49ers. Give us a Patriots.
A Bears.
Yes.
Let's see the drama in the QB room.
Yes. Let's get some intrigue. There's no intrigue in the Colts at all.
No.
Like you said, Carson Wentz, neutral. I have zero feelings about him. He isn't, besides the Super Bowl year, he had never looked fantastic. He looked good. And now, the last year with the Eagles, he looked awful, like horrible.
Terrible.
And against the Seahawks, he didn't look great. He didn't look bad, but he didn't look great.
I don't think he's their franchise quarterback, that's for sure.
No, I think Phillip Rivers was better, definitely.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's just no intrigue. I think Quentin Nelson might be cool to see, but
we'll probably
or Darius Leonard.
No.
That'd be kind of cool. But
we'll probably get an episode of just Carson Wentz hunting.
Yeah.
That's probably what it's going to be. Because that's another thing with this. I don't know if it's a good idea to do an in-season version because with training camp one and obviously preseason, I feel like you get more info from the coaching and coaching staff and like that into like what their game plan kind of is. None of these coaches are going to do that, especially for the regular season. You don't want to be giving out that information just for your opposing team to just pick up and be like, oh, well, we watched Hard Knocks last night.
Yeah.
This is what they're going to do. Obviously, they're weeks delayed, like it's a week delay. But still, that's valuable information that's probably coming out.
Yes, for sure. And when you look at the ones in the preseason and training camp, you have a lot of very interesting storylines surrounded by the on the brink guys.
Yeah, the bubble guys.
Yeah, the bubble guys who could make the practice squad or could make the team. And I think that's the more fun stuff of it because it's people you've just never heard of that are trying to make it. That's the cool stuff. When you know all the starters already and it's literally just week to week basis, I don't think it's that intriguing.
Yeah. Obviously, Brogan Roback, quarterback for the Browns, Hard Knocks legend. Still disappointed he got cut. He should have been QB1.
Yes. Add him to the Browns QB list.
Yep. Let's add that 31st name onto the jersey.
Yes.
Let's move on to the Bengals going to Chicago to face the Bears. The Bears are a 2.5-point favorite. Just like last week, I think the story is Justin Fields and how much he plays.
Yeah, I think I was very disappointed by how much they played Justin Fields on Sunday Night Football. I mean, he got in there for what, two plays?
5 at most.
Yeah, it was not. They did not utilize him at all, especially on a night when Andy Dalton. He put up decent numbers, but not what you need.
It was average.
Yeah, it was just an average. And I think Justin Fields can get you better than average. That's the big key. And I think Joe Burrow is going to – I think he'll look good against this Bears defense. This Bears defense is not as good as I thought they might be. I thought they might give the Rams a little bit of trouble. However, that was not the case.
No, it was not.
So I think I'm going to pick the Bengals on this one. I think the Bengals are probably a better team, and I like Joe Burrow over even if Justin Fields is playing, he's still a rookie. And Joe Burrow is just so fun to watch. He is.
Yeah, I feel like that's another game that wasn't really talked about last week is the Bengals beating the Vikings in overtime. They looked much better than they did last year.
Yeah.
But you also got to factor in half of last year, Joe Burrow was not their quarterback.
Yeah.
You obviously had Jamar Chase. He had a breakout game. He could actually see the football without the stripes. Yeah, I kind of think the Bengals end up winning this too. I think Andy Dalton's going to have another average day. The fans are probably going to be asking for Nagy's head.
Yeah.
Especially if Fields does not play and Andy Dalton looks average. The fans will be calling for his head. Chicago, their fans, awesome fans. It's a rabid environment. They're going to be after him.
Yeah.
Things do not go well.
Especially being that Andy Dalton looked average against a very good Rams defense. I mean, if he looks average against a not so great Bengals defense, you're going to have problems in Chicago. Yeah.
Let's move on to the Texans traveling up to Mistake by the Lake. They are facing the Browns. The Browns are a 13-point favorite here. You usually don't see numbers that big in the NFL. You usually see numbers like that in college, especially when it's basically a blowout game.
Yeah.
So the Browns are favored by 13. Browns coming off that loss to Kansas City, even though they looked good. Still, they should have won probably, but that's neither here nor there. Texans coming off a week 1 win against the Jaguars. They actually looked pretty decent with their band of misfit toys.
Yes.
And you also got to factor in, this is a Tyrod Taylor revenge game.
Yes, it is. And I happen to think the Browns will win by 13. I think the Browns will be not the team to beat, but one of the teams to beat in the AFC. They competed with the Chiefs. And every time you have a matchup in the early regular season, that gives time to grow. It gives time to improve. I think that loss in the first week is definitely going to benefit the Browns rather than it will detract from the Browns. I think they're going to come in, and I think they are going to demolish this Texans team, who they demolished a very bad Jaguars team. So,
see, I can't have hope because I've seen too much. I will not be surprised if the Texans win this game. And now we are in worst case scenario mode now. Like, we just lost to the Chiefs, which obviously that's not so bad. And then you lose to a Texans team that is supposed to be absolutely terrible. That is worst case scenario stuff there. I do think we avoid losing to the Texans, but I don't know if they cover that 13 number. But I did see a lot of positives with the defense. I do think that they will get better with time, as mostly any team does. Obviously, OBJ still out for this game. I'm not super worried about it because they obviously want him healthy in January and not in September. They're just taking their time with it. I think we have enough wide receiver targets to replace him, as shown last week. Anthony Schwartz had a breakout game. I don't know if they cover the number.
Yeah. I am officially on the Browns bandwagon this season. I think they're the only team who can keep up with the Chiefs, and I expect them to be in the AFC Championship game. And I know you cannot say that because you are a disappointed Browns fan who cannot have hope. But I will have hope for you.
I think you need something. I think you need this beautiful. No, this is not Baker Mayfield. Brian Hoyer, Michigan State legend. You are officially on the Browns bandwagon.
Let's go.
I think this is your draft moment.
Yes.
This is you with Roger Goodell.
Yes.
You're holding
give me my hat.
Yep. You're holding up the Browns jersey. You are on the bandwagon.
I am. I'm officially on the bandwagon.
Because your team, we'll get to them soon,
Yes.
are not going to be good this year.
No, they will not.
Let's move on to the Chiefs. They're going to Baltimore on Sunday Night Football to face the Ravens. The Chiefs are a 3.5-point favorite. This is going to be a huge game. You got two of the most dynamic quarterbacks in football right now, I believe, even though Lamar Jackson's a glorified running back. This should just be an all-out fun game.
Yeah. I'm really excited for this matchup. I think, as you just said, it'll be a fun watch. However, which we will get to Raiders-Ravens, but without going too far into detail on that, there is way too much pressure on Lamar Jackson on the offensive side of the ball. He is not the only one. He needs help. Other people need to show up. The defense needs to show up. When you have him trying to do everything, which we've seen, he gets flustered in the playoffs, his playoff losses. He's trying to do everything. He's trying to do too much, and he gets flustered. You cannot have that. And the Ravens need to learn from this. And I think it won't be different. They've had way too many injuries, and I like the Chiefs in this one.
I mean, it doesn't help when like three of your running backs go down with torn Achilles or torn ACLs and are out the season. And now you're signing Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah.
So that really doesn't help the Ravens. The Chiefs, I'm somewhat expecting more of the same from last week. I don't know if they go down as much in the first half. I do think that they look better than they did in the first half against the Browns, and I do expect them to go into the lead at halftime.
Yeah. And
I do expect them to win, and they better win because I have Mahomes and Kelsey on my fantasy team. But like I said, this should just be a fun game. I kind of expect it to be a less defense game and more offense game.
Yeah, I think this will a lot of offense, high scoring, should be a good potential game of the year, maybe. Who knows?
Game of the year. The game
of the year.
You never know. It just gets thrown out every single week.
Game of the year. Game of the year.
Yeah. I don't think we see like a Rams Chiefs repeat from a few years ago on that Monday night. That was the game of the year.
That was game of my life. That was actually probably one of the most entertaining football games I've ever watched.
What, it was 10-10 at halftime or something like that? Yeah. That was the game of the year. Let's quickly go back, talk about what is not a game of the year. Is the Ravens beating, or not the Ravens, the Raiders beating the Ravens on Monday Night Football in overtime. The whole overtime, it was just stupid football, basically.
It was chaos. I think John Gruden should be ashamed of himself after a performance like that in overtime. An absolute debacle, an absolute embarrassment. You have, for the first time, the Las Vegas crowd all packing in, cheering even when their offense is on the field. I mean, there was just so much pent-up energy. And then overtime happens, and you put on one of the worst coaching displays I think I've ever seen in my life. It was brutal to watch.
And it was luck that they even got the win.
Yes.
Because of the turnover that got them the ball back. They should not have won that game at all. Like you said, this was just despicable coaching by the Raiders. That play on basically the goal line, you can't jump off sides there. You just can't.
You do not go into hard count there.
No.
That is not the time to try to get someone to jump off sides. The ball is already this close to a touchdown.
So what
How
are you
much
going to do?
closer are you going to get?
Half the distance. So you're going to move up just like that much more.
Nothing. I didn't understand it at all. I think, Derek Carr looked good. I think that is one takeaway. I thought the Raiders' defensive line looked really good. They gave Lamar problems all game. But I just think, and they did get the win, so they need some credit. But holy moly, they had the win in their hand. They were celebrating. and then they almost blew it. You can't do that. You can't.
No, you can't. You got anything else to say about week 1 recap, basically?
And then going back to Lamar Jackson in that game, way too much pressure on him. He was running like a chicken without his head. He was everywhere. I think he needs some more help. He tries to do way too much by himself, and that's not how you win football games. So I hopefully these Ravens are able to turn it around, but I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they don't make the playoffs this year.
Yeah. One more thing I'd like to say about that game. You know who the biggest winner was from that game?
Who?
The Manning brothers.
Yes.
The Manning cast.
Yes.
That was just awesome. I believe they're doing it for 9 more of the Monday Night Football games this year.
Mm-hmm.
They need to do all of them.
Yeah.
I watched some of the just normal broadcast. I couldn't do it. The Manning cast was just awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really hoping that we get a Manning cast for the Tennessee Ole Miss game. Obviously, like that game's not going to be close probably because Tennessee just isn't good. But we just need the Manning brothers bantering against each other during that game with their 2 respective universities.
Yeah.
That would just be awesome. Get Archie in there.
Yeah.
I don't know, bring Coop along. I mean, he didn't play football, but he's just entertainment, I guess.
Yeah, but the Manning cast needs to be a staple. I mean, so much insight, so much fun. There's never any fun on a normal broadcast. They were goofing off with each other. I mean, you have the famous helmet moment with Peyton Manning. I mean, that was so good. It was so funny. The banter between the brothers was beautiful. And then on top of it, the special guests. You had Ray Lewis, you had Charles Barkley, you have Russell Wilson, who stayed like half of the 4th quarter and all of overtime.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was just so much fun, such an enjoyable Monday Night Football.
Yeah, obviously the thing is the talk now is gonna be, well, can we get them in the booth for the normal like Monday night? No, leave the Manning cast as the Manning cast.
Yeah.
And the only thing that makes it better is if they're in the same room.
Yeah.
Obviously, you probably can't do that with COVID protocols and everything, but getting those 2 in the same room would probably just make it even better. And like I said, there's going to probably be talks like, oh, we need to get these guys on the normal cast now. They can't do what they were doing on the normal broadcast. So this needs to stay a staple as their own thing. And same thing with like Peyton's Places and now Eli's Places. 2 very, very great shows.
Mm-hmm.
I never liked the Manning brothers as actual quarterbacks. Now that they're both retired, they're the best.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd be curious to see the ratings between normal ESPN and ESPN2, just to see how many. I feel like I saw everyone online saying that they loved this combination, but I'd be curious to see the ratings. So, yeah, I'd love to see this in the future. And I agree. If you put them in a booth together, I don't think it comes out as genuine and natural and fun. Since they were just relaxing, gave Peyton the remote, just running it back. Mm-hmm. He's pointing out what the defense is doing, what this linebacker's doing when you motion and what he sees. And I don't know. It's just so fun to be informed as a football fan. I love to see it.
Yeah, so an advantage to us talking about Monday Night Football on Friday afternoon, we do have the ratings. The opening broadcast, just a normal broadcast, had 7.4 million viewers, and the Manning cast had only 800,000. But I do think a factor into that is not a lot of people knew that it was happening.
Yeah.
I think you'll see that number go up on Monday with this game we're about to talk about, which will be the Lions at Lambeau against the Packers. I do think we see that number get into the millions.
Yes, for sure.
So let's talk about that game. Lions at Packers on Monday night. The Packers are favored by 11. Another number that's, I feel like it's too big for the NFL because everything's like always small. It's just like the Browns game. Packers coming off absolutely terrible game against New Orleans.
Yeah.
The Lions almost had to come back against the 49ers, showed that they will fight until basically the end. They might take a kneecap, you never know. What are we expecting from Aaron Rodgers in this game?
I expect, much like the Ohio State game this week, I expect a comeback week. I think this scheduling is perfect for this. They weren't expecting the Saints to be as good as they were. Jameis Winston looked great. That defense looked great. And Aaron Rodgers looked awful. That defense looked awful. I think they're definitely going to bounce back. Lions will compete, but I think the Packers bounce back, get the win, and people will be talking about relax.
RELAX.
Yes.
Yeah, like you said, this game probably could not come at a more perfect time, especially after that week 1 loss. Just Aaron Rodgers is most likely going to have a comeback game. He always has a great game against the Lions. I don't know if that's saying more about him or the Lions,
Yeah.
but the Lions always struggle at Lambeau. So the number, although it surprises me, it doesn't, especially with knowing how the Lions are going to most likely look this year. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if the Lions backdoor cover that number, especially with the way they played against the 49ers.
Yeah, I agree.
Are you taking the Packers here, probably, even though you're a Lions fan?
Yeah, I'm taking the Packers, but I definitely think it'll be less than 11 points.
I'll take the Pack too. It just is what it is. Like you said, this is probably going to be a huge bounce back game for the Packers, and I wouldn't really be surprised. Again, the biggest winner will probably be the Manning brothers after this upcoming Monday night week. Okay, before we leave here today, I want to take you for a quick kick around the pitch. I'm going to take one game from each of the 5 biggest leagues in Europe. I'll give you a few quick notes about it. And yeah, that's basically it. So let's start off. All these games are going to be on Sunday. You first have the game Tottenham-Chelsea, 11:30. This game's going to be on Peacock. Chelsea have won the last 5 away London derbies. They've never won 6 in a row. Obviously, London derbies, it includes the likes of Arsenal, Crystal Palace, Fulham, Brentford, Tottenham, West Ham. So it's not all against Tottenham, but still a stat to watch. Spurs are looking to go 3 wins in 3 games at home for the first time since the 02-03 season. That will be a thing to watch. Heung-min Son might also still be injured. We're not sure if he's going to play. That could be a big factor in that game. Let's take you to Germany. Borussia Dortmund against Union Berlin. This game is also 11:30, ESPN+. All Bundesliga games with these 2 players, the winner or the home team has always won this game. Dortmund is the home team for this game. They will maybe end up winning. Let's go to Italy, Serie A, Juventus, AC Milan, 2:45 CBS Sports Network. Juventus coming off the big win against Malmo in the Champions League. I believe it was like 4-1. Milan lost to Liverpool. It was 3-2, a very close game. They were up at half. Just an amazing game to watch. With a loss or draw, Juventus will be winless in their first 4 games for the first time since 1961-62. Obviously, Juventus, a huge club in Europe and the world. It's shocking their start so far, so it will be an interesting storyline to follow. France, PSG, Paris Saint-Germain, and Lyon, 2:45. I don't know where this game is at. TV-wise, it's in Paris, but I don't know what channel it's on. During the Qatar Sports Investment Ownership, which began in 2012, Lyon has beat Paris 5 times, more than any other team in France, in Europe, aka Champions League. But that is just a boggling stat. And finally, let's go to Spain to end the day. Valencia, Real Madrid, 3 o'clock, ESPN+. Madrid has had 22 straight games without defeat. That is their longest current streak in Spain. That'll be interesting to watch. But also, Madrid has only won 1 of the last 7 matches at the Mestalla, the home of Valencia. So that is also going to be something else to watch. So that is your quick kick around the pitch.
Football.
Football. Any other games you're looking forward to this weekend?
Not that I'm looking forward to, but I would like to point out last night was Thursday night football.
Oh yes, we should discuss that really quick.
Yes, so Giants and the
Football team.
Football team.
Football team.
Yes, that was a fun game to watch. I did not think it would be as fun, but the Washington football team was able to get a win at home against a questionable Giants team after what was another awful, a few errors by this Giants team. In my mind, I don't know about you, but I feel like the Giants beat themselves last night.
They did. Obviously, Daniel Jones did have a somewhat better game than he did week 1 against the Broncos. But yes, the Giants 100% beat themselves last night, especially with that jump off sides on that missed field goal at the end of the game. Costly, obviously, because they retried it and they made it, which ended up with the football team winning. But yeah, there were just some questionable plays that the Giants had, and it really cost them the game. Also, got to say, Taylor Heineke, is he maybe the guy for Washington?
Yeah.
I don't know. He looked good.
Yeah, he did look good, except for the pick at about the 2-minute mark in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
That was an ugly pick, and you can't turn it over then.
No.
But besides that, I thought he looked very good. I mean, he had a deep ball back in the corner of their backup tight end. Just high pointed it perfectly over the cornerback or the safety or the defensive back. Just a beautiful ball, like just perfect. And then he had a few throws. He had the one again to J.D. McKissick, former Lions, down the sideline for like a 50-yard gain.
Yep.
And then his throw to the inside on a nice post route to Scary Terry. That was a beautiful throw. He looked the safety off and hit him right down the middle. That was great. So he did look really good. So I think he could be the man. I think he's definitely the better option than Fitzmagic.
Yeah, obviously he's out 6 to 8 weeks, so we will see what Taylor Heineke has to prove in these 6 to 8 weeks. So now, any other games you're looking at for the rest of the weekend?
No, this is a good slate, what we talked about, and I'm really excited for some football.
Yeah, so we will be back on Monday for a recap of most of these games or any other games that pop out. Thank you for sticking and watching this video. I think it went almost an hour or more. I don't know. But yeah, so thanks for watching. Please let anybody know if you like this video, please let them know about us. As we said, it's only our second episode.
Yes.
Which, I mean, I think we did pretty good for episode 2.
Yes, this went smoother.
Yeah, definitely much smoother than audio issues and the sky darkening out of nowhere from episode 1. So yeah, thanks for watching, and we will be back on Monday for a week 3 recap and a week 2 recap. Awesome.